We are told that the current state of the economy is positive. We've heard this so many times before. It's usually when most agree upon this fact that things suddenly turn around. There's no telling when conditions will get worse, but just take a look at how bad things have come in just the last decade. People have an incredibly low interest rate to work with, and yet they're nearly bankrupt. This is a pattern doomed to failure. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. Today we're going to look at the debt situation in the United States, and then we're going to touch on Canada as well. So stay tuned for a jam-packed episode. Let's begin by taking a look at this. 58% of Americans have less than $1,000 in savings. I used the charts in this article here out of Go Banking Rates just recently, but it was very relevant to what we're talking about today, so I wanted to include it and touch on some points. What you're looking at here is an economy that isn't doing well. When you look at more than half of the people, yes, it's a survey, it's not everybody in the United States, but it gives us a good idea and shows us that more than half of people are in dire straits. They don't have any savings. They don't have investments. They are not doing well. And so it's only going to be compounded as interest rates rise. This is the chart I showed you previously. If you haven't seen it before, very quickly, how much money do you have saved in your savings account? And you could see right here, the biggest portion has $0. 32% of people have $0 in their savings account. This is a very troublesome number to think about because all of these individuals, as soon as there's any little bit of problem with their current income source, if they lose their job, if their job gets hours cut, if something happens to them, they're injured, they're sick, or what have you, maybe somebody in their family, all of a sudden, all of this gets thrown onto the bus. We've got a big problem. But a lot of people don't think of it like that. They push it to the absolute maximum. They take on the most amount of debt. They push themselves to the limit simply because they're using their credit cards, they're using their line of credits, they're using their home equity line of credits, every possible means of trying to extend themselves because I can get what I want today and I'll pay for it over a period of time. And this is fine in the low interest rate world, but that doesn't last forever. And especially when we're talking about bad, very bad debt, like credit cards, for example, the interest rate is always high and it could get worse as interest rates get worse, but not to the same degree as, for example, mortgages, which will be due to increase dramatically over the next few years as the quantitative tightening policy resumes. We'll see what the central banks decide to do. It's all on them to either bring it up or bring it down. But let's take a look at this one. On the left-hand side, 1 in 3 people worry about maxing out or overdrafting their payment account when making a large purchase. 1 in 3 people. That means you don't know what's happening with your income, you don't know what's happening with your savings, and you don't have any way to manage it. This is how serious the situation has become. 1 in 3 people. On the right-hand side, 36% of people have maxed out their credit card making a large purchase, 12% more than once. This tells you that people, number one, are probably buying things they don't need, and also the fact that they are pushed to the absolute maximum. Some people are in a desperate situation, that's for sure. They have a family member who is sick. They have medical bills. There's all different types of reasons why this could happen to any person, but of course we see a lot of people buying things that they don't need. So if we were to exclude those people from the equation, I would really like to get some numbers on that. I'm sure it's not possible, but that would be very interesting to see because then we would actually be able to know how many people are doing this to themselves. It is very, very troublesome to read this type of data, and we keep getting the numbers over and over and over again. Now, this happens to be the United States. The problem is going on basically globally right now, even in China, where we often hear this repeated meme of they always pay for everything in cash, there's no problem with debt, there's no mortgages there, and all this silliness. Well, actually, in fact, the amount of mortgage debt today compared with 10 years ago has literally skyrocketed when you see the numbers. I've shown it here on the channel before, but that's a false idea that some people have taught, and it is completely wrong. Yes, there are places around the world where they're not using credit cards as much as, let's say, the West or, for example, in America, as we're seeing here, but that doesn't mean that they are excused from the situation. Of course, people in the major cities around the world use debt like any other. It doesn't matter where you live, okay? That's just the way it is. If we're talking about rural areas, a lot of people don't have bank accounts. A lot of people don't have debt. They don't use credit cards. They pay for things in cash when they need to. That's the way it goes. But you look at the major cities, everything is basically the same. So we can't really take that information the way that it is trying to be put out into the media, which I find very strange. Now we're going to turn the page over to Canada because the situation is much, much worse than what the media makes it seem. A lot of people are living the high life today, driving Maseratis, Lamborghinis, Bentleys, Rolls-Royce. You see them every single day driving down the streets in Toronto. I'm sure the situation is very similar in Vancouver. This happens to be a problem here because of what we can see with this statistic. A new survey indicates that almost half of Canadians have pushed their finances perilously close to the brink, underscoring the heavy toll that mounting debt loads are taking on households in this country. Look at this. 46% of respondents in this survey said they are within $200 of insolvency every month, compared with 40% who faced dire circumstances in the previous survey in September. I brought you that survey in September. The situation has become worse by 6%. 46% of people are within just $200 of bankruptcy. That's not good. That tells us right now that if something changes within that person's income or their personal situation, same with the United States, they're finished. $200 is not a lot. Look, if their mortgage rates go up just a small amount, that's going to have a dramatic impact. Maybe it will impact them, let's say $100, and suddenly they're only $100 away from insolvency. And then we have an issue where their internet goes up, their cell phone goes up, and maybe a new bill comes in. That's another, let's say $40. And then it gets closer and closer to the edge and people are unable to deal with it. Look, if one of your appliances goes, that's $1,000 right there. If one situation like your car, for example, somebody bangs the back bumper, now you got to get it repaired. You don't want to take it to insurance. Maybe somebody hit the car, they ran off. You know the way this works. It happens all the time. There are always unexpected expenses that people incur, and it's when you least expect it. It could come from anywhere. It could come from inside your house, could happen to you and a different situation. Who knows, all right? I'm just trying to give some examples, but $200 shows us that we are very, very close to the edge. 46% of people. 39% of people said that they're worried they'll be pushed into bankruptcy if interest rates rise any higher. And that is very true because they are desperately attached to the easy monetary policies. And so they've got a problem ahead. Many Canadians have so little wiggle room that any increase in living costs or interest payments can tip them over the edge. The Bank of Canada raised its benchmark lending rate 3 times last year, taking it to 1.75%, and the last time they left it where it was. This is going to be a problem when you bring it up to 2%. When you go beyond that, still historically extremely low. People don't want to believe it, but that is a fact. And so we will see what happens. Mortgages are obviously the number one thing because people have put so much into it, and then at the same time they've been pulling it out using home equity line of credit. A big mistake in my personal opinion. Debt will in fact crush people. That is a fact. But here we are today looking at people making the same mistakes over and over and over again. This is obviously going to cause a problem for them, with interest rates being really the catalyst, I believe, to some very hard times for a lot of people. Just wanted to make a note about what's happening within Canada. Canadian manufacturers and wholesalers recorded sharply lower sales in November, adding evidence the nation's economy entered a soft patch at the end of last year. It's not just the US, it's not just a particular situation with one sector or another. We are seeing a protracted slowdown that is occurring today. The data confirm Canada's expansion has likely entered what economists believe is a, quote, temporary slowdown that is expected to last through the first few months of this year amid a slump in the country's oil sector and overall weakening in global economic sentiment. There's more details in here if you'd like to read it, but I just wanted to show you the fact that we are feeling it on every level, from every angle. People are suffering, the economy is suffering, the business are doing so, but 1,500 jets descended upon Davos, Switzerland to tell everybody how much tax they want them to pay. They want the individuals to be taxed, the global tax that they are trying to get in today to fund their carbon tax plans and all of the other ridiculous ideas that they have conjured up. When you have a struggling economy, people need to look for things that they need for their family, for their household at a cheaper price. They don't have that disposable income they used to, so they have to get discounts. So they're going to be clipping coupons, they're going to be shopping at the cheapest stores they can find, and this is just two examples I'll show you, Dollarama as well as Dollar Tree. Now look at the expansion of Dollar Tree, for instance, with its 15,000 store. That's incredible. And with Family Dollar as well, all throughout North America, they're at about 26,000 stores. We're talking about incredible numbers here, and people are finding these dollar stores all around, all right? We are seeing this right now as really expanding. Now, dollar stores aren't what they used to be. In many cases, they don't have products that are $1. They go up to $4 in Dollarama's example. But regardless, we're seeing people that are looking for cheaper prices on items that they buy, okay? So that's what they're doing. I noticed in the last recession, what we had towards the end of it, as we saw things weakening, they were finding that Walmart and Costco were seeing, particularly Walmart, I believe, were seeing some boost as a result because people were trying to get things more cheaply. So they were going to places like this. They weren't going to the expensive supermarkets. They were going to the cheaper ones. There was a real transition that was occurring in a very short period of time in the last few months there prior to the financial crisis really taking effect. So I'm going to finish the video. I basically just wanted to say that what we are facing today is not necessarily going to come up in the statistics such as the U3 unemployment rate that the BLS provides to you. They're not going to see that, okay? You're not going to get the government statistics to come out and tell you, well, this is exactly what's happening. This is when it's going to happen. This is how you're going to feel it, and this, and that. No, it doesn't work like that. You have to look at very unusual statistics and indicators to be able to piece the puzzle together. There are hundreds and hundreds of data points you need to pull together to make one judgment. That's the way it works, but you don't see that oftentimes. You see individuals in the mainstream, in the government, that they point to one statistic or another and suggest that this is the way it is, that's it, end of story. And that is completely ridiculous. So I just wanted to show you this, the type of information you don't find in the mainstream, and I take that from all different types of sources. If you're new on here, basically what I do is I collect the data, I piece it together. I'm taking everything from mainstream. I get white papers, I get government documents, I get the statistics. I pull that all together with the charts and the articles and everything, and I make these condensed videos. I try to keep them to 10 minutes if I can. Sometimes I rant, as you can probably tell, but this is what I do. I do that, and hopefully you found it informative. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. When you give me a thumbs up, you're supporting this channel, so I do appreciate that very much. And last but not least, if you want the financial education you were not taught in school, you can get everything you need in these two books taken together. I talk about the foundation, the history, tax incentives, reducing your expenses, so much more. Check them out at the link in the description. If you want the audiobook version, you can get that at themoneygps.com.